Hello, my name is Kiriath. Hello, my name is Kiriath. Hello, my name is Kiriath, and today we are going to do the direct opposite of what we've actually done so far this week, which is maybe be a little bit sensible, temper our expectations ever so slightly, and that is largely because I was kind of looking at some of the other videos on the channel, and I remembered Orktober. See, Orktober for me was very interesting. I quite enjoyed Orktober, but then I approached Orktober from a different perspective to a lot of people. My Orktober experience was some kind chap sending me what turned out to be a bunch of incredibly accurate leaks as to what was going to go in the codex. My Orktober was not based on, are we going to see a complete refresh for the range? Are we going to see amazing stuff for the orcs? Is this going to be like the best thing that's ever happened to orcs? New war boss model, new Ghazghkull model, new boys, new everything. Mine was more waiting to see whether the next thing I was told was actually true or not, which is a completely different game to play, but it was just as fun. Now, yesterday, we talked about Sanguinius returning and the possibility of a Blood Angels versus Khorne box, which actually turns out not at all likely to happen. I thought it might be interesting at the very least, especially in the context of Horus Heresy 30k as opposed to 40k, because that would be something a little bit different. It'd be something a little bit interesting, a bit unique for that context, for that setting anyway. Having an introductory box where half of it was demons as opposed to it being Legion versus Legion. Someone pointed out to me that the first episode of the official 40k podcast is out, which I totally missed, by the way, so thank you for pointing that out, because I went back and listened to it. Incredibly unlikely to happen, because you wouldn't have two armies that are the same colour in the same box set. Which, as soon as that was said out loud by Jez Goodwin, I kind of went, oh yeah, that makes sense actually. You wouldn't do that. You'd want them to be visually distinct in every way. Admittedly, there is a little bit of rule bending going on when it comes to Horus Heresy. I mean, the forces in the boxes are obviously visually distinct from one another, colour-wise. But when it comes to, Legion versus Legion, the rules are a little bit different. But when it comes to just boxes in general, having a massive red versus a massive red is not visually appealing, whereas two different colours are. It's a very simple thing, but to be honest, I completely see the logic for it, and it makes sense, and also does now put to bed any idea, any thought that I had about maybe there being a combination of Blood Angels versus Khorne. It's a shame, because it's narratively good, but I can see why it wouldn't happen. So that kind of put that idea to rest a little bit, which made me a little bit, not sad, but I was like, that's a shame. And then we have the 80 days thing for Chaos. So Haarken Worldclaimer has stuck his stick in the floor and gone, this place is going to be mine in 80 days, and there's an actual countdown, an actual 80-day countdown. Now, I think with that, it's entirely fair and entirely reasonable to expect that we might get something at the end of it. And, the stuff that I've floated, which most people have floated in fairness, is stuff, it's stuff like maybe a new Abaddon and new Obliterators. These are all based off rumours that we've heard for months and months now, going back 6 or 7 months in some cases. And something being revealed at the end does seem like a fairly sure thing. It doesn't seem like it's completely out of left field. It's not totally unreasonable to assume that. I think it would actually be more unreasonable to assume that Games Workshop would do an 80-day countdown and then just go, and there you go, the countdown's finished. Because that would just be a really bizarre marketing decision. That would just be really odd. It would be like, okay guys, 80 days. What are we going to do in 80 days? Nothing, screw it, fuck it, can't be bothered. It seems incredibly unlikely. We might at the very least see the next instalment in the Vigilus campaign series, or at least a preview of it. That, I think, is reasonable. Side note, by the way, just minor side note, there is a difference between I think and Games Workshop announces. Bloody Spiky Bits, that bastion of good fucking practice when it comes to writing about 40k, they... When I was like, okay, we could expect this, we might see this, it'd be reasonable to think we may possibly encounter this at the end of the countdown, they went with Games Workshop announces the return of Chaos Space Marines. No, they didn't announce that. They didn't announce fucking nothing. What they did was do a short teaser with a countdown to something that we don't know what they're actually counting down to. We can make educated guesses. We can assume that perhaps it would make sense for certain things to happen. We could even go so far as to say that it'd be silly if we didn't see some sort of Chaos Space Marine release, but they didn't fucking announce anything, did they, lads? No. No, they did not. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, So, having done those 2 videos this week, I then had a look back at the other stuff that we've done in the past for, like, especially like Orktober. Orktober is the key here, because Orktober, I think, is probably a lesson in how to manage what to expect from any sort of built-up or hyped-up release. And I'm including in this the Chaos Countdown. So the Chaos Countdown is a very tangible thing. It is just like in 80 days, something. Orktober was maybe a bit more nebulous than that. It was maybe a bit more, a bit less cut and dry, but it nonetheless set up an expectation for that month and for that faction that I think, in hindsight, was almost impossible to live up to. Like, genuinely impossible to live up to. The way that was done, I don't think was necessarily like a bad move on Games Workshop's part. I honestly don't. I don't think it was a case of them going, let's build everyone up just to let them down. I don't think that's the case at all. I think what they did was they took a recurring theme, like a daft meme from the community, and went, you know what, that is kind of funny, that is a good way to engage with people, let's do it, let's actually make Orktober, let's take that joke, let's run with it, let's have a whole shed load of stuff on the community site regarding the orcs. I mean, in terms of like just community content, in terms of content on the community site, Orktober had a shed load of stuff. I don't think any other faction has had anything close to the amount of attention that Orcs got. Out of the length of that month, there was literally like an Orc-based article pretty much every day. And I'm including Regimental Standard in that, by the way, because Regimental Standard is really fucking good. And having the Orcs take that over and seeing like an Orc trying to explain how, you know, guns worked at other Orcs, that was really good. That was a nice way of doing things. That was like a genuinely fun way of, you know, making that month interesting for the Orcs. The downside to that is that what the community did as a whole, and I'm including myself in this to a certain extent, because I could have said you need to not get too excited about this, but I didn't. Instead, I just found it hilarious that they were actually doing the Orktober thing. That was taken to mean that Orcs were going to get way more than they actually did. I mean, they got a bunch of new vehicles, nicely designed, interesting, fun vehicles at that, in my opinion, anyway. But the way that the community as a whole seemed to take it was, okay, they wouldn't be doing the Orktober thing if they weren't planning to refresh everything. If they weren't planning to give Orcs like every single thing ever. New Gazgul, new Warboss, new boys, new everything. That's what we can expect from Orktober. Of course, that's incredibly unrealistic. There's little to no chance that would happen. I will say, straight off though, not having a new Gazgul model, that is a weird and bizarre oversight that I still don't understand. To this day, I don't understand. I can kind of understand not doing new boys, although personally I prefer it if they did, because I have a box of Orc boys from my 3rd edition army, and it's the same goddamn kit. Although admittedly that applies to quite a bit of stuff that isn't Space Marines, so maybe don't get too annoyed about that actually. But the expectation from the community as a whole was really high. Now, because we didn't get all of that stuff, you know, it wasn't just like everything gets replaced, oh my god, this is amazing. Orktober is not regarded as being a success by most people. It's regarded as being somewhat of a old Games Workshop built us up only to just let us down all over again. And that's a shame, because I think certain parts of Games Workshop made a distinct effort to make Orktober something different. Like, again, the community team, I think, did a good job of trying to make Orktober a real interesting month for Orc players and people who just were buying into that kind of attitude, I guess. Now we have the countdown for Chaos. We have this 80 days thing. We have this looming, approaching deadline from which amazing things might occur, or they might not occur. We don't actually know. We've got no idea, because the only context we have is the fact that it's a Black Legion champion, Haarken Worldclaimer, who has started the countdown, and we have some rumours, which of course Games Workshop will not address. They may do eventually, if someone brings up like an actual picture of a new like Abaddon model or something. They may do something like that, maybe in the future, closer to the time. But they're not going to go near it because they have this countdown set up. We are kind of locked in at this point. We've strapped ourselves in, and we're just going to have to wait until the end of it. The thing that we kind of need to do, and I'm including myself in this because I've already got myself like kind of a bit hyped up for things that I don't even know are real and are quite probably or possibly not. The only thing that you can really do in the build-up to countdown like this is actually try not to get overly hyped. Which is a weird thing to say, because I mean, I don't know about you, but a significant amount of the enjoyment I get from this hobby is seeing all the rumours, seeing all the new releases, like talking about them, just actually being involved in the community side of this as a whole. And new releases, rumours, leaks, all of that stuff is a big part of the community. It's one of the things that makes 40k not just fun when you're playing or modelling or painting, but it's one of the things that makes it fun when you talk about it. The vast majority of people I speak to, they're not like necessarily talking about the game they had yesterday. It's more what's going to happen in the future, what is going to happen in 2 months' time, what's going to happen in 3 months' time, what's going to be in the next Vigilus book, what's going to happen after Vigilus. That's another video that we should do. But it's incredibly easy to get caught up in that. It's incredibly easy to buy into it straight away and be like, okay, this is definitely what's happening. It's got to be this. There's no way it can be anything else. And then it turns out not to be that. And the overwhelming response is, oh, well, that's shit. Understandably, yeah, because it's very easy to get caught in a cycle, like a repeating thing of, I like the idea of this, I like the idea of this. Oh, it does make sense. Oh, it really makes sense. Oh, yeah, I can't see them doing anything but that. I think that is something that happened with Orktober, because it was like embraced by them and actually used by them as a marketing thing. When you get right down to it, if you're going to take something that the community has latched onto that much, you've got to do something really, really ridiculous with it, because we've already set ourselves up for that. And then when it doesn't happen, it's like, oh, what the fuck, guys? Even though really you could just point to yourself and go, oh, I probably shouldn't have expected everything in the world from this. It's a weird thing, because on the one hand, it's the same with rumours and leaks. I want to talk about the stuff that I'm sent, but I don't tell you guys a lot of the stuff that I'm sent. Like, if I can't corroborate it, if I can't get some sort of verification, if no one else I speak to who has previously sent me, reliable rumours, reliable leaks that have turned out to be true, I don't tell you about it. And I don't tell you about it because no matter how many times you say, I don't know if this is true, I don't know if this is true, this is probably not true, this is probably wrong, heaps of salt, tables, an ocean's worth of salt should be taken with this rumour, there will be any number of people who go, yeah, but that makes sense, I can see that happening, so I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen. Even when it's not, even when it never is. Like, the criteria for rumours for me is that I either have to know that there's a good chance of it happening, it has to be interesting enough that there is another topic that can come out of it whether or not it's true, or it's something that possibly is gaining a load of traction and I know that it is most likely bullshit, at which point I will then make a video basically telling you, yeah, this is probably bullshit. The stuff that people send where it's like, you're going to see, oh yeah, Fulgrim's going to be in the next Vigilus book. I have been sent that. I'm mentioning it now in the context of stuff I wouldn't tell you, because no one else has been able to verify that. No one else has been able to say anything about it, no one's heard anything about it, and people who have experience with the way Games Workshop does things, for the most part went, why? That doesn't really make any sense to me. At which point I go, you're right, and it didn't make much sense to me, but I'm glad I checked, so now I'm just going to ignore that because I don't think that is remotely true. It's all about trying to, again, I guess, temper expectations and make it clear as to what is and is not likely. With Orktober, it was a case of getting a massive shed load of the entire range redone was not likely. But the way that it was approached and the way that it was kind of talked around and about sort of made it seem as though Orktober was going to be something way bigger than it actually was. And I can easily see the same thing happening with this 80-day countdown. Like, I'm feeling like it's reasonable for us to see Abaddon. I'm feeling like it's reasonable for us to see maybe a new Obliterators or Mutilators. Both of those are ancient models. They need a refresh. In the second Vigilus book, we are most likely to see some Chaos action because, well, they've arrived now and they're going to do shit whilst they're there. Are we going to see a Black Legion Codex? Are we going to see an entire range refresh? Every single model has a fresh new take. Are we going to see a bunch of new rules? Are we going to see like 8 new characters? Probably not. But it'd be kind of easy to make yourself think their will, because it's just kind of easy to get into that cycle of thinking. So yeah, when it comes to that countdown, when it comes to the 80-day Chaos countdown before Haarken Worldclaimer invariably fails and someone has to turn up and clear up his mess, maybe don't expect the minimum, but don't expect the maximum either. Keep things nice and even. Think about what would make sense, what would actually, fit with the context of Vigilus, of the way Games Workshop releases products, and use that as the basis as opposed to hopes and dreams. Because let's be honest, for the most part, when it comes to, I think, any hobby, the whole hopes and dreams thing doesn't really work, because your hopes and dreams are not the hopes and dreams of the company that you are supporting, which occasionally will make you think, why the fuck am I supporting this company? But it's because a lot of the time they do get it right, even if they don't give you exactly what you want every single time. Anyway, that got very long and rambly, didn't it? Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think down below about what we're going to see at the end of that 80-day countdown. How you kind of approach rumours and leaks yourself, whether you have a particular method for deciding whether you want to believe them or not. And, in fact, actually, do you think Orktober was a massive bust, or do you think it was okay? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click any of the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all that shit. Click if you like, don't click if you don't want to. And I hope that my head was less distracting this time. I'll see you for the next one. Toodaloo.